First to our guest this evening, Clive Palmer. Now, he came in at the last election as the billionaire businessman. He was the non-politician ready to shake up the system. He grabbed the balance of power and was, for a period, one of the most powerful people in politics. That was then. He's since lost two of his senators and the balance of power. His business interests have taken a big hit too, as have resource companies around the world, to be fair. Queensland Nickel, though, his company, is now in administration. 237 workers have been sacked. A sprawling cattle station is up for sale, as is a luxury corporate jet, all tied to the nickel refinery. There are questions as well about sizable donations from the embattled Queensland Nickel Company to the Palmer United Party over recent years. I spoke to Clive Palmer this afternoon in his Canberra office. Clive Palmer, thank you for your time.
It's good to see you, David.
You're losing your private jet, are you?
No, well, I've taken the decision, having 5 jets, that I should at least let 1 jet go for the benefit of our workforce, so we can deploy that money keeping families employed. So
I didn't realise you've got 5 jets.
That's right, yeah.
Right, and are they, who owns the 5 jets?
Well, we've got one of them that I own, which is my private jet, and there's 2 of them that are owned by, actually there's 2 I own. I own one here and I own one in the United States, and there's 2 at Mineralogy. They own 2 MD-82s, which are 2 airliners. Right. And this one's another one, and I thought the current economic circumstances, that money's better be available for the workers at QNI.
So this is the jet that's owned by Palmer Aviation.
That's right, yeah.
And the administrators of Palmer Aviation have now put it up for sale.
That's good.
Apparently Palmer Aviation, though, owes about $26 million. The jet's probably worth 10 to 15, they say.
Well, who knows?
That's what the administrators have said.
Well, you know, I mean, I don't think the administrators are aviation experts, but the main point about it, is it's superfluous. It's not something they need.
Either way, there'll be some debt left over, though, won't there?
There could be. I'm not sure.
And who's going to carry that?
Well, the company's got assets of $2 billion, David, and I'm sure they're quite capable of meeting that debt. No problem.
The company being
Queensland Nickel. Yeah.
Okay, so Queensland Nickel.
Queensland Nickel Group. There's a group of companies,
and that will carry the debt of Palmer Aviation.
I think so. I'm not actually run across that documentation.
All right, but again, this gets loaded onto Queensland Nickel, which already has creditors queuing up out the door. This is another debt they're going to have.
Well, I don't know if they're queuing up out the door. I mean, the real story about Queensland Nickel is this, that it was put into administration. The commodity price crashed. As you've seen, there's been 22,000 jobs lost in Queensland. Now, most companies have decided to liquidate their business. We decided to put it in administration because we had a high obligation to keep over 2,000 people employed. Now, in 2009, when the nickel price was $7.50 a pound, BHP Billiton decided to close it. Today, the nickel price is $3.50 a pound, and we've got it going, employing 2,000 people. That's a great management team, and it's a great success story.
But as that nickel price was coming down, last year in particular, I think it halved. Queensland Nickel was still making donations to your political party.
Well, that's not true. The press get confused because they have a look at when the returns lodged at the end of the year, not what happened earlier. If you look at our audited accounts, which was signed in September 2015, it showed that over $1.95 billion in assets. The forward projection that the auditor had at that time, based on the then current nickel price in September, was 73 million surplus for the year. And in October, the nickel price really crashed, right? Which put all that in jeopardy.
So are you saying there were no donations from Queensland Nickel last year?
Not from. I don't think there were any from September to December.
What about the one on New Year's Eve, on the December 31?
Well, that wasn't a donation. That was a lodgement of the report, and that's where the press have got it wrong.
So when was the donation?
The report period covers from June through to December.
So between June and December, that donation was made.
It wasn't a donation, actually. If you look at the...
You just said it was. There were no donations.
No, what I'm saying, if you look at the form, right, it says donations in kind. Like, for example, we've got empty offices that the party uses. They put a nominal value on them. That's what it's... There was $32,000 in that period in actual cash donations in that period.
So there were donations either in cash or kind last year while the nickel price was falling?
No, of course those donations happened prior to October as far as I'm concerned.
No, but I'm talking about last year, 2015.
Yeah, I'm talking about last year too.
While the nickel price was falling.
The nickel price was crashed in October 2015, right? In the projection in, what was it, the month before anyway, September, it showed a $73 million surplus for the business. This is not unusual. This has happened to Rio Tinto, BHP. Glencore dismissed 485 workers, and the media hardly covers it. You know, but the real question is, why should we get all this publicity when we're fighting hard to keep 2,000 families employed when they're quite happy to let 22,000 other people go?
Okay, well, let's look at how hard
it's a political thing.
Well, let's look at how hard you're fighting for those 237 sacked workers and whether they're going to get their entitlements.
Well, let's go back first so we correct a couple of things so we're on the right page. What happened when those workers were made redundant? The managing director of the company immediately ensured that they had 2 weeks forward payment of salary when they left. He then gave the direction to work out what their entitlements were. The administrator was then appointed. The administrator made the decision that he wasn't going to pay the entitlements. He was going to put them in a deed of arrangement. That's not my decision. That's not the management's decision of Queensland Nickel. Once you put it into administration, the administrator has full power to do those things.
All right, but now there's this question mark over their entitlements. You own the company, so what are you going to do?
Well, what I've done already, and no other shareholder in the history of the Commonwealth's done this, I've made assets of mine, $240 million worth, available to the administrator.
That figure is contested, though, because tell me what those assets are.
Well, that figure is formed by an independent assessment from BDO Accounting. There's an independent evaluation of that.
How long ago was that done?
It was done, I think, probably in February, something like that. It was done this month or in late January.
And these are of your coal assets?
Coal and other assets, yeah.
The Waratah Coal and China First?
They're part of those assets, yeah.
Because some say that the coal price having gone from around $140 down to now around $50, those exploration leases, licences, aren't really worth that much.
Well, they were worth probably $1.5 to $2 billion. So they've gone down in that value. Well, they still represent the third largest reserves, actual proven reserves of any coal deposit in Australia. So it would be silly to say that they're not worth anything, because they had already, in my estimate, had declined $1.8 billion. But
do you expect they will be sold to fund the creditors?
What I think will actually happen is that Queensland Nickel will be successful. It will come out of administration. People will be paid their full entitlements, and our strategy will be vindicated.
Even with the nickel price where it is?
I think so, because there's been great efficiencies, and regardless of what Malcolm Turnbull says, we've got the best management in the world, and they've brought the best efficiency for Australia ever. They're still operating at half the price for nickel BHP was going to close it 6 years ago. What a great job. Now, isn't it better to keep people employed, try to fight for their jobs, rather than saying you're all sacked, go, do what News Corporation does? They sack journalists and won't comment.
There are 237 people who won't get their jobs back, though, right?
Yeah, out of 2,400 total people involved, jobs...
And while you're confident the company will be able to trade out of this and keep the remaining jobs, not everybody is as confident. Your cattle station's now also up for sale as part of this process?
No, the administrator is... selling excess assets that are not required for the core business.
Is that a cattle station? And
that's a cattle property, but it's a 60 square kilometre cattle station which was over some mineral deposits that they decided to buy historically.
Which meant that you paid a lot for the property, for those mineral deposits?
No, I don't think so. They didn't pay
$8 million plus?
Well, I think the property is 60.5 square kilometres. It's not like it's a small property. So I'm sure it's worth in the millions of dollars.
But is it worth what you paid for it?
I don't know. I don't really know what was paid for it. It's an asset of the company's.
But if the coal price has crashed from when you paid for it, it's not going to be
the beef price has gone up, David, if you've been following all the...
I'm not sure if it's quite made up that much difference. But
well, I think it has, because it deals with what you can produce. You'd have to get Barnaby Joyce or someone like that here to answer that question. But I think it's a good move that the administrator's moving to sell assets that are not required for the business and making that cash available to people. I've got no problems with that.
What else was Queensland Nickel used for? If it provided finance to your Palmer Aviation, to a cattle station, donations to your political party?
No, hold on. Palmer, we took over Queensland Nickel when BHP was going to close it.
But I'm just wondering what you used it for. Did you also use it to fund your vintage cars as well?
No, I didn't, because it's my money. My money went in to buy it. I put tens of millions of dollars into it. It was only sustained because of my capital. I owned 100% of it, David, and that was the situation. I decided in 2013 not to take a dividend of $20 million, not to buy a 6th or 7th plane, not to have a 7th or 8th house, but to take that money and put that money to work for the benefit of the people of Australia.
But then why did you use Queensland Nickel for all these other things, financing your aviation company, making donations to your political party.
Well, of course, you know, the plane was owned by Queensland Nickel for business purposes, and of course Queensland Nickel, if you know, operates offices in New Caledonia, Indonesia, the Philippines, and they regularly have to have flights to work out, you know, contracts and things like that of nickel supply. Because what we do at Queensland Nickel is we buy ore from other countries and bring it to Australia, process it, and sell it back on the international export market.
Yeah, and it's a tough environment, as you acknowledge.
Yeah.
So why then are you using this company for all these other things, including donations to your political party at all?
Well,
nearly $6 million.
I'm not using the company for that. You know,
nearly $6 million was donated from Queensland Nickel
not
to
this year.
United.
Not this year. It was donated in years where we had a substantial profit.
But why?
Well, hold on. Because I'm in business to make money, and I'm allowed to use the profits to pay myself a dividend, and I decide I don't want the dividend, please use it for that purpose. That's my decision. And in those years, the company's 100% solvent. It's got great accounts, and it's got over $1.9 billion of assets. But why? The real question is, why are you questioning us about this, and you're not questioning BHP?
Well, I'll tell you why.
Rio?
This is about transparency. This is about credibility. This is about your dealings in the private sector and whether you deserve to be a politician and whether you follow the law. Because the corporate regulator is also now looking into questions as to whether you have been a shadow director.
Well, that's just rubbish.
Nickel.
That's just absolute rubbish.
Well, that's what ASIC's...
no, look, it's just rubbish. It's just what the unions are going on about.
So ASIC Commissioner John Price, when he spoke in Senate estimates, saying that they are working with administrators to forensically investigate records, including questions over your use of the alias Terry Smith in dealings with Queensland Nickel.
Well, let's deal with that one. That's a very serious one. Now, if I go and book a restaurant with my wife for dinner, and I say it's for Clive Palmer, we'll find a whole lot of people there with cameras, like we did at the Smiling Duck, right? So I've got an email in Terry Smith that I normally use to communicate with my family members, which I did on this occasion.
But I'm talking here about dealing with Queensland Nickel and their expenditure committee.
Yeah, look, my nephew, Martin Brewster, is head of the expenditure committee. I email him. Now, I'm one of 6 members of the expenditure committee, which approves amounts over $500, which is made up of 5 people who are not directors of the company, who are employees.
So
hold on.
It's 5 or 6 people on the committee?
There's 6 people, including me, on the committee.
And why are you on that committee?
Because I'm one of the 6 people. 4 people have to approve it, as against 2.
Every bit of spending over $500?
Yeah, that's right, and that's been the system that's been there for a long time. Now,
how often do you participate in this committee?
Well, the current director of Queensland Nickel, because I had a knowledge of the plant and saved it in 2009 to 2013, asked me would I stay on that committee with other employees.
Does that not make you a shadow director?
No, it doesn't.
You're essentially signing off on every spending decision?
No, it doesn't. Can I explain something to you? A shadow director is someone that does the functions of a director, not someone that does the functions of a cleaner or an engineer or a general employee. And I was requested would I do that, and that's what I did.
I'm not sure if a cleaner or a general employee signs off on every bit of spending over $500.
Well, on that committee is made up mainly of engineers that work in the plant. That's all it's made up of.
But surely the role of a director is to approve significant spending decisions.
No, that's done in a budget or annual accounts of the company, which is signed by the directors. This is not that sort of expense. This is a question of how much is a faucet? Have we got 3 quotes for the faucet? Do we think we should buy it? Is it that's what it's about.
You were an actual director, though, for some 26 days last year?
Yeah, when my nephew, who was the main director there, had marital problems and had a divorce, he asked me would I help out to keep the company going because of my previous background, and I agreed to help that and take on that responsibility.
And in those 26 days, were a number of donations made to the Palmer United Party?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, that was something that Tony Jones asked, and I went back and checked, and they said that's not right. He asked me the question, was $6 million donated? But anything that was donated at that time would have been money that would have been due to me as a shareholder of the company.
But were any donations made during your time as a director?
I didn't sign any cheques to the party. There's no money made that I'm aware of.
So no donations were made during
not that
time?
I'm aware of.
And no donations throughout the second half of last year while the nickel price was falling?
No, the last quarter, the nickel price was falling in October. That's the reality. But any money that was donated was money that was mine. Because, surprising as it is, if you invest tens of millions of dollars in a business, you're entitled to a dividend or a return. I know that's extraordinary, isn't it? All right. Now, of course, the Liberal Party and the Labor Party at the last election had budgets of $60 million and $25 million. And of course, most individuals or Australians don't get a chance to compete with them. So is it wrong that someone that's got the capacity doesn't spend as much as them, maybe a third of them, but has a right to express their point of view as well?
So as Queensland Nickel tries to trade its way out of its troubles, your cattle station...
This is 2013. Was it about 2013?
I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about right now. Queensland Nickel trying to trade its way out of difficulty now. Your cattle station...
It's not my cattle stations, it's Queensland Nickel's.
All right.
Okay. It's their historical assets. There's a lot of assets in the company that BHP bought and the Queensland government bought when they owned it.
What else? I'm just trying to get to what else will be on the chopping block. The cattle station, whoever it is, the corporate jet. What else is going to be on the chopping block here?
Well, I don't know, but whatever they can get rid of that's not needed in the business is a good thing.
Are your cars linked to the business?
No, of course they're not. Is your car linked to who you work with?
No, but I don't have multiple business interests.
No, but of course not. Yeah, that's not my jet, as I explained to you. It's the company's jet. I've got a series of companies. They've all got their own planes.
All right. So this is it. There won't be any further assets of yours?
I've put all my assets up as I can to support the workers, but unlike BHP, unlike News Limited, we are trying to keep people employed and keeping them going. Why should people have a go at us for doing that?
You have faced a lot of criticism over recent months in relation to all of this. Yeah. What impact do you think it's going to have on you politically? Zero.
And I think, if you have a look, most people out there know that it's a good thing to try to keep people employed and keep it in administration. Most people appreciate the fact that we've spent $4 billion since 2009 in North Queensland keeping a lot of people employed, that we've given away to workers 55 Mercedes-Benz and 1,300 holidays to our workers as bonuses. Not many bosses do that. And even the Australian had me as Santa Claus in 2010 when I did that.
In hindsight, were they smart decisions?
Yeah, they were, because the people...
Given the company Queensland Nickel's now in administration?
Look, the money that Rupert Murdoch lost in China, was that a smart decision? Of course it wasn't. But the point about it is that...
I'm just asking about yours.
Yeah, but companies deal on an annual basis. And in 2010 or 11, whatever it was, the company had performed well, the workers had performed well, and we thought they deserved a reward. So we gave away 55 Mercedes-Benz to people who had contributed for that year and deserved it. We gave away 1,300 holidays, so everyone in the plant could take their family on an overseas holiday. That's the reality of it, and that's a good thing, because that encouraged...
Do you think people would rather have a Mercedes-Benz or a job?
Well, I think the reality of it was that a lot of the wives contacted me later and thanked me for sending them on a holiday with their husband rather than giving them money, because they would rather have a good family life, and it was the first time they got away with their husband and their kids and they could be together as a team. And I think travel motivates people and gives you a good response.
Let me ask you a few policy questions, Clive Palmer. The Defence...
Well, I'm a politician, I'm a retired businessman, right?
The Defence White Paper out today, it does talk about the tensions rising in the South China Sea in particular, and one of the strategic issues we need to be aware of. You've been quite critical of the Chinese in recent years as well. You even apologised for some remarks that you made about the Chinese government. Have you softened your views at all about China?
Well, I think China, like any country, acts in their own interests, and we've got to realise that foreign affairs is countries acting in their own interests. We've seen a situation, for example, where ASIO, I'm not sure, has refused to stop a witness going to the International Court of Justice because it's in Australia's interest, and many people would say that's a bad decision. But countries do act in their own interest, and the Chinese are no different.
Well, they act in their own... Every country acts in their own interest, but are you particularly concerned about what China's doing at the moment?
Well, I'm concerned about the over interaction in Australia, and I'm concerned about the freedom of our ports. I think it's a bad state where the Chinese own Darwin Port, Newcastle, and they're focused on other ports in Australia. Because if a foreign government owns all of our ports, they control our commodities and what facilities are there to allow exports. So I think we've got to be vigilant in that regard.
Let me ask you about your future then in Parliament. You are seeking another term as the member for Fairfax. You're not going to try in the Senate. You're going to stick with the lower house seat?
Well, yeah, I think I'll be sticking with Fairfax, and I'll have to listen to what my electorate says and what the needs of the country are. Well, as you know, I donate all my salary to charity. So I'm only here to serve the people and to see what they want me to do. And
but is the option of jumping into the Senate something you'd thought about at all?
I had thought about it, but I think that people of Fairfax have been pretty loyal to me in difficult times.
So you won't do that?
I owe them a fair bit of loyalty, and if I wanted to be a career politician, it might be different. But It's not the greatest place to work.
The polls, I saw a recent poll that had your support in Fairfax. This was a poll just in Fairfax at only 2%.
Well, that's believable, isn't it? You know, the believable that the sitting member's got 2% support. Of course, this is what happens in Australia. The media try to have the agenda, and you know, polls are rigged. I mean, do you really believe the Labor Party's got 50%?
How are they rigged?
Well, I'm just asking you the question. Do you really believe that the Labor Party's got 50% support and Bill Shorten's got 21 and Turnbull's got 60 or something? What a lot of rubbish.
It's feasible. How are they rigged?
It's not feasible.
Well, how are they rigged?
Well, I'm sure that media proprietors have an interest on how these things are done or how they're statistically determined. And if you look at the news poll and what they publish...
This is a Fairfax poll.
No, but if you look at the different polls, they have a lot of exclusions. And
so the owners of Fairfax have rigged this poll.
Well, when I say owners, it's owners of the poll, the people are responsible for it. But anyway, look, all I can tell you is that Paul Murray, one of the most accurate people in Australia, predicted on the night before the last election that we only had 53 Facebook members in Australia and that our vote would be minimal. Yet we got over 1 million voters or something in the last election, got the balance of power in this country and stopped the 2014 budget. And there's been a reaction to that. They don't like that.
Well, there are a number of things you said in that election campaign that no doubt helped you win that seat of Fairfax and win a number of Senate positions as well. Well, for example, you promised to scrap tertiary education fees, to abolish fringe benefits tax, to cut income tax by 15%, to increase the age pension by 20%.
Well, we said that was our policies, right?
Have you introduced a bill on any of those things?
Yeah, we have actually enacted a lot of those things in what we've done in the Senate in line with those policies. For example, the university fees. I got up in the House of Representatives here. I said that wouldn't pass from the Abbott government. I said Palmer United would block it in the Senate. We did that. I said that when Christopher Pyne...
Did you vote on it in the House?
Yeah, we voted in the Senate. I didn't vote in the House.
Why not?
Because I was too busy negotiating a better outcome on a number of other bills, such as the Chev visas that were introduced by us. That was my initiative, where we freed 30,000 people from detention, over 1,000 people from Christmas Island. That was one of our initiatives that we had with Scott Morrison.
But then you did, on asylum seekers, you did vote for the government's bill to strengthen their ability to offshore process people at Nauru and Manus Island.
Yeah. What was a compromise. What we had to work out was that there were 30,000 people in detention, and we thought that was an appalling situation. And we wanted a visa system which would allow them to go anywhere in Australia where labour was needed, work for 5 years, and then be able to apply for other visas.
And Dio Wang, your senator, voted against a bill to remove kids from detention.
Well, I don't know the details of that bill in particular because this is on Nauru.
Do you want offshore processing or not? You said at the last election you wanted to end offshore processing.
Yeah, I think offshore processing should end because I think it's a bad look for Australia. I don't think we want to keep concentration camps. I don't think we want to spend small children.
So why did you vote for the government's bill to strengthen their power to do so?
Well, what we did was we eliminated Christmas Island and freed a lot of children.
Yeah, I'm talking about Nauru and Manus Island.
Well, at that time when that bill came through, there was Christmas Island, there was Nauru and there was Manus. And we found that we could get two things from the government, the introduction of the Chev visas, which would free 30,000 people, and we could close down the Christmas Island detention centre for the children that were there. So it was a situation of whether we thought it was a good thing to bring those children and those people living there out of detention into normal society, or whether we just didn't do anything and had the whole three situations as they were.
You point out that you missed that vote because you were busy negotiating another issue.
Yeah, I was in that particular one.
You've taken part apparently in fewer than 10% of votes in Parliament during your time here.
Well, I mean, you have to be realistic, David. My vote in Parliament is not significant in any way. The government has an overwhelming majority in Parliament. What's important is outcomes for people that live in this country. If I can be busy getting better outcomes, and if you think of the co-payment that we stopped in the Senate, if you think about the fact we kept kept Qantas Australian-owned, we saved the Climate Change Authority, we saved the Clean Energy Corporation, we saved ARENA, we stopped the university fees going through, we saved low-income super, we saved the school kids bonus, we saved low-income superannuation. The list goes on and on. Australia would be a different country if it wasn't for Palmer United in the Senate. Now, if you believe the polls and where we are, why do we get so much media attention? I mean, Cathy McGowan doesn't get the same attention that I get. Bob Catter doesn't get the same attention that I get. I've only got to hop in a taxi. I've only got to hop in a taxi like I did the other day, and I'm on the front page of the news. Why is that? Because maybe
politicians usually like
attention?
Well, you know, when journalists try to get me, it's very hard to get me. Yeah, I normally don't give that many interviews, as you know, right? So I'm not seeking this sort of attention, but it's focused on me. Why is it? If our polls are so bad, if we can't do anything. But I'm just saying that in this current term, we did stop the 2014 budget, and that was the ultimate demise of Tony Abbott. We did call for Bronwyn Bishop to be removed. We did stop Campbell Newman in Queensland. So to say, you know, that we haven't been politically effectively is just not true.
Well, Clive Palmer, we appreciate you giving us some time today to go through all of this. Thank
It's
you.
good. God bless you.